The year is 1928. World War II hasn't begun, but actions made by Germany to retake former lands had increased world tension. July 15, 1928, the Polish had done their best to keep up decrypting German codes, but now their codes had become unreadable. Codebooks could decipher codes, but if one fell into enemy hands, the entire code was compromised, therefore ciphers were needed. The Germans created the Enigma machine that was designed to use electric signals to create a new cipher every time the settings were changed, anywhere from daily to every 6 hours. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill recruited talented linguists, mathematicians, and scholars together at Bletchley Park, 50 miles north of London called Station X, in order to crack the Enigma code. Although the Americans had code breakers that assisted in decrypting codes, our ally Britain did the most work, recruiting thousands of women to work on decrypting using machines created by Alan Turing. The machines known as the bomb machines, which were complex code-breaking computers.
We were assigned to a building, 2 stories, and in the building, on each floor, were approximately 60 of these machines. And we were taught to run them. They gave us a graph to follow, and we would set these switches to certain numbers. And then came down here to set the rotor wheels, and I realized these were the wheels we were putting together in Dayton, Ohio. So we would put the settings to the numbers. There was a little clip, and you would unclip it, pull the wheel out, and you would set it to the number, and then push it back in and clip it in place. When all the switches were set to the proper numbers, and all the rotor wheels were set, we came over here and pushed the button. Then we sat on a stool at the end of the machine for the run, what we called the run. When the message was broken, all of these lights would flash, and then the machine would stop. And at that point, it would print. When it was finished printing and the machine started up again, we would tear it off and rush to the end of the room, knock on a door, and a hand would come out, and you would say, "Strike." The hand took the message away. You never saw it again. You couldn't read the message because it was in columns of letters. So apparently, when they took it away, it went somewhere to be decoded.
How long did that go on?
That went on for 2 years, and we kept these machines running night and day for 2 years.
Were there times when you were given, if you like, special emergency messages that had to be broken? Were you aware of that?
Oh, yes. They would come in and give you one and say, a graph and say, "This is a rush," and you would immediately get to work and set everything. And after everything was set, we had to double check before we pushed the button.
Did you know what you were doing?
I hadn't really the faintest idea what I was doing, but as the time went by, you knew it had something to do with code breaking. So one day I said to my wave officer, "Could you tell me what's going on here? Do you have any idea?" And she said, "Well, I don't know a whole lot more than you do, but I can tell you, I heard someone say, we're breaking the back of the German U-boats." And I remember I thought, oh, wow. And it wasn't such a dull job anymore.
The bomb machine was one of the greatest advancements in technology that helped the Allies discover the locations of their enemies and allowed for strategic planning. With the technological advancements, it also applied to the creation of new arms, tanks, and bombers. General Patton once wrote to General Campbell, in quotes, "In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised."
The M1 Garand was the U.S. weapon of choice for most infantrymen. It weighed about 10 pounds and was 43.5 inches long. It shot at about 40 to 50 rounds per minute, and each round moved at 2,800 feet per second coming out of the muzzle. It had a 500-yard effective range and an 8-round magazine. German's Sturmgewehr 44 weighed 10 to 12 pounds and was 37 inches long, with a firing rate of 550 to 600 rounds per minute. Each round moved at 2,247 feet per second from the muzzle. It had an effective firing range of 660 yards and a 30-round box mag. The British Lee Enfield rifle weighed 9 pounds and was 45 inches long. It had a firing rate of 30 rounds per minute, and each round moved at 2,441 feet per second coming from the muzzle. It had a 550-yard effective range and a 3,000-yard maximum range and a 10-round magazine. The Type 99 Arisaka rifle is about 8.4 pounds and 49.5 inches. Each shot goes out of the muzzle at 2,400 feet per second and it has a 5-round magazine. A tank is just a really big gun, right? We'll talk about that later. Let's talk about the German Panzer, beast on the battlefield, 25 metric tons, 23 foot long, 9 foot wide, 9 foot tall, a 5-man crew, 3 of which are gunners, moving at 12 horsepower per metric ton, a 120-mile operating range, and 24 to 26 miles per hour on-road speed. That's beastly. Saying the US was behind militarily on anything really leaves a sour taste in my mouth, but it was the case against the German war machine. Now, we just mentioned the Panzer, and our only counter to that was the Sherman. At 38.1 tons, 21 foot long, 10 foot wide, 10 foot high, a 5-man crew with 3 gunners, 13.49 horsepower per ton, 150-mile operating range, and 22 to 30 mile per hour on-road speed. France. Well, they're France. They can make a decent tank, though. Their Char B1 was 28 metric tons, 21 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 9 feet tall, the 4-man crew. 97 horsepower per metric ton, a 120-mile operating range, and a 17 mile per hour on-road speed. Planes are just winged tanks, right? Whatever. The B-25 was an American plane with a 6-man crew, a 53-foot, 68-foot wingspan, 16-foot tall, 610 square foot wing area. It weighed 20,000 pounds unloaded and 35,000 pounds fully loaded. It went up to 272 miles per hour, had a range of 1,350 miles, and a service ceiling of 24,200 feet. It could boast 12 to 18 machine guns or a T-13E1 cannon, as well as 3,000-pound bombs or 8 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets. The Japanese Zero, one of my favorite planes of all time. It's got a 1-man crew, 30-foot, 39-foot wingspan, 10-foot tall, 241.5 square foot wing area. It's got 3,704 pounds unloaded, 6,164 pounds loaded. It's got a max speed of 346 miles per hour and a never exceed speed of 410 miles per hour, a range of 1,929 miles, and a service ceiling of 32,810 feet. It can carry 2 Type 97 aircraft machine guns and 2 Type 91 cannons. It can also carry 130-pound bombs or a single 550-pound bomb for the kamikaze fighters. Gonna be honest, the German Junkers is a bit of a chunky boy. Crew of 9 men, 94 feet, 138-foot wingspan, 22.5-foot tall, 2,191 square foot wing area. Weighs 72,611 pounds unloaded, 99,141 pounds loaded. Can go up to 273 miles per hour. It's got a range of 3,843 miles. It's got a service ceiling of 19,680 feet. It carries 8 different machine guns, 2 different types, so it carries 6 of the machine gun 151-20s and 2 of the machine gun 131s.
The 761st All-African Tank Battalion landed in Normandy in October of 1944. The 761st Line had been under intense training for countless months after Colonel Paul L. Bates. Unlike the other troops who had trained for a certain amount before entering the war, the 761st Tank Battalion, who called themselves the Black Panthers, had been enlisted in Patton's 3rd Army and were ordered by Patton because he needed tank units to continue fighting on the front. They had been fighting as the front line for Patton's army since November 7th, 1944, for a full 183 consecutive days. These men had not fought just to win the war, but to support desegregation and to prove that they are capable of meeting and excelling expectations of the whites. They fought in 4 major Allied campaigns, which included the Battle of the Bulge. The most famous battle, the Siege of Bastogne, was broken by the Black Panthers, though they suffered many tragic casualties. In the end, they had broken through the Nazis' 13th SS Panzer Division and pushed towards Austria to meet with the Soviets. The fighting ended on January 28, 1945, and their crucial heroic role in this war had given the Allies the victory they had fought so hard for.
I have nothing in my army but the best. And if you wasn't good, you wouldn't be here.
I want you to go up there and kill every one of those GD and people you see.
He said your people are looking for great things out of you. And I'm looking for expecting great things out of you. So damn it, don't you let them down. And damn you, don't you let me down.
And he said, I don't give a damn what color you are. All I want you to do is kill them Kraut bastards.
The 92nd Infantry Division, which consisted of about 15,000 troops and officers, was an all-black division that fought in the World War II. This was the very last segregated unit in the U.S. Armed Forces. Given the name by how fierce the U.S. Army fought for the land in the southwest U.S., these brave soldiers are willing to risk their lives for the nation they love so much. The Buffalo Soldiers, aka 92nd Infantry, was deployed in Italy and arrived on July 30th of 1944. Working together with all Japanese American unit, the Nisei people, they have demonstrated the potential and the capability of their race, as well as loyalty to the US through their services. They suffered heavy casualties but helped the US take the crucial step closer to knocking Hitler's plan down.
Most of us felt like General Roman was really not on our side, that he was like I don't know what you would call him. He was a man who didn't particularly care about black people at all, none of them, regardless of their rank or where they were from or anything else. He thought that most of them should be in service outfits.
August 23, 1942. Hitler attempts to take over Stalingrad but fails. This is significant because it stopped German advancement into Russia and Eastern Europe, pushing the Nazis back into Germany.
The most famous assassination attempt in the World War II was the Valkyrie, also known as the July Plot, plotted against Hitler during the World War II. On July 20th of 1944, many officers and military leaders saw that Hitler refused to give up and kept his impossible dream to take the world, so they plotted to murder him so that everyone would be free from his order and his stupidity. Stauffenberg planted an explosive suitcase, believing that it would kill him. He ran away. After the explosion, Hitler only suffered minor injuries. However, a few months later, Stauffenberg and Ulbricht were arrested and executed on July 21st. Soon, over 200 officers would be executed because of the conspiracy. Erwin Rommel also took his life for the sake of his family being found guilty of this plot. Almost a year later,
as the Allied forces advanced their way into Germany, the dream of world domination Hitler had planned for began to crumble. Fueled by drugs and shaken by tremors, his mindset was still focused on victory, but his troops thought otherwise, disobeying his orders and leaving him hopeless. In April 1945, the Red Army began to close in on the new Reich Chancellery. Hitler's headquarters, which was also near his underground bunker, known as the Führer Bunker. On April 29, 1945, Hitler married a middle-class woman named Eva Braun, whose loyalty for Hitler was insane. By late afternoon of April 29, Hitler knew his time was coming to an end and came to a conclusion with his wife that both would commit suicide the following day. He prepared the poison, later identified as cyanide, and tested on his dog to see if it would work. Then he gave the poison capsules to his secretaries as a parting gift for if the Soviets stormed in. On April 30th, 1945, his wife and him bid farewell to the military staff and returned to the Führer bunker, where Hitler takes the poison and shoots himself in the head, while Eva takes the capsule to commit suicide. Bormann and Goebbels Nazi associates found their bodies and carried up to the Chancellery Garden, where it would be doused with gasoline and burned while giving a final Nazi salute. May 1st, 1945, German radio announces the death of Hitler, and 6 days later, May 7, 1945, Germany signed an unconditional surrender. Hitler's 1,000-year Reich only lasted 12 years, and America shifts its focus to the war in the Pacific.